My heart sank as I watched our SUV disappear down the dirt road dust, billowing behind it, carrying away my wife Sarah, her boss Kevin, and 6 of their laughing colleagues. They had taken my cell phone, wallet, car keys, and even the energy bars from my backpack. The mountains of upstate New York stretched around me in every direction, the nearest town over 15 miles away. It had all been planned as a harmless team-building prank, to see how the outsider, the overprotective husband, would react. What they did not know was that I had a tiny backup phone hidden in my boot. I did not call 911 or scream in rage. I made just one call to an old friend. By morning, every single person involved in abandoning me would discover exactly who they had messed with. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever been on the receiving end of workplace humor that crossed the line, hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, the satisfaction of what unfolded the next day is something you will not want to miss. I met my wife Sarah during graduate school at NYU. I was studying cybersecurity while she pursued a master's in marketing. We connected at a campus coffee shop where we both regularly camped out with our laptops. Our relationship developed naturally, bonding over late-night study sessions and weekend escapes to explore the city. After graduation, I established my own IT security consulting business, while Sarah joined Pinnacle Marketing Group, an up-and-coming agency with prestigious clients and a reputation for innovative campaigns. For the first 3 years of our marriage, we maintained a healthy balance between our careers and personal life. I worked primarily from home or client offices around Manhattan, and my flexible schedule allowed us plenty of quality time together. Sarah was passionate about her work at Pinnacle, gradually moving up from junior copywriter to senior marketing strategist. I supported her ambition completely, often staying up late to help her brainstorm campaign ideas or simply listen as she processed workplace challenges. The shift began when Pinnacle was acquired by Madison Media, a massive conglomerate with offices worldwide. The acquisition brought new leadership, including Kevin Reynolds, the 32-year-old son of Madison's CEO, who took over as Pinnacle's creative director. Kevin immediately implemented what he called a work hard, play harder culture, emphasizing that Pinnacle employees should consider themselves family rather than just colleagues. This new corporate culture manifested in mandatory after-work happy hours, weekend retreats, and increasingly elaborate office celebrations. Sarah began arriving home later and later, often slightly intoxicated from office gatherings. When I expressed concern about the blurring boundaries between her work and personal life, she defended the new atmosphere as modern and progressive, suggesting I was being old-fashioned. "This is how successful companies operate now," she would explain. Kevin says the most innovative ideas happen when colleagues bond beyond the confines of traditional office hours. I noticed Sarah gradually adopting new phrases and attitudes that seemed foreign to the woman I had married. She began describing me to her colleagues as her overly cautious husband who needs to loosen up a bit. When these characterizations got back to me through mutual friends who attended Pinnacle events, I felt increasingly uncomfortable with how I was being portrayed. The first incident that truly alarmed me occurred about 6 months after Kevin took over. Pinnacle had a tradition of office birthday celebrations, but under Kevin's leadership, these evolved into elaborate pranks. For her assistant Mark's birthday, Sarah participated in a scheme where they pretended he had accidentally deleted an important client presentation minutes before a meeting. They let him panic for nearly an hour, frantically trying to recover the files while the client waited in the conference room. In reality, there was no client meeting scheduled, and the entire office was watching his meltdown through a hidden camera, laughing in another room. When Sarah recounted this story over dinner, seemingly expecting me to find it hilarious, I was disturbed. "That sounds genuinely cruel," I said. Mark must have been terrified for his job. Sarah's expression shifted from animated to defensive. "Oh, come on, Daniel. Everyone thought it was hilarious, including Mark, once he realized it was a joke. This is why I rarely tell you about office stuff anymore. You always overreact." Similar incidents followed. A colleague's car was fake towed on his first day, leaving him stranded for hours. Another employee's office was completely wrapped in aluminum foil, including every pen and paper clip, requiring hours to undo. Someone else found their desk relocated to a building bathroom. Each prank seemed to escalate in both creativity and disregard for boundaries, all endorsed and often planned by Kevin himself. Despite my misgivings, I tried to support Sarah's career. I attended company holiday parties and client launch events, making polite conversation while feeling Kevin and his inner circle evaluating me. They seemed to view my reserved nature and professional demeanor as somehow worthy of derision. Several times I overheard comments like, "Here comes the chaperone," or "Careful, the adults are here," when I approached their group. When the invitation came for Pinnacle's annual 3-day team retreat in the Adirondack Mountains, Sarah was insistent that I attend. "Everyone brings their partners," she argued. "If you do not come, Kevin, and the team will think you are snubbing them. This is important for my career, Daniel." Despite serious reservations, I agreed. The retreat was scheduled at a luxury wilderness lodge, promising team-building activities during the day and relaxation in the evenings. We drove up early Friday morning, with Sarah chattering excitedly about the weekend ahead. I resolved to maintain an open mind, hoping to better understand the workplace culture that had so captivated my wife. The first day consisted of trust falls, problem-solving exercises, and team competitions that felt more appropriate for summer camp than professionals. I participated politely, noting how Kevin always positioned himself as the center of attention, and how the other employees, including my wife, laughed too enthusiastically at his mediocre jokes. During dinner, wine flowed freely, and Kevin regaled the group with stories of past retreats and legendary office pranks, some of which had apparently resulted in property damage. This year, he announced with a wink toward his inner circle, "We have something special planned that will really test the boundaries of our comfort zones." The knowing glances exchanged between Sarah and several colleagues gave me an uneasy feeling. But when I questioned her later in our cabin, she dismissed my concerns. "Just try to have fun and fit in," she sighed. "This weekend is important to me." Little did I know that by the following afternoon I would find myself alone in the wilderness, betrayed by the woman I had built my life with and the workplace family she had chosen over me. Saturday morning began innocently enough with a group breakfast and announcement of the day's activity: a guided nature hike through the mountains surrounding the lodge. We were split into small groups, each following different trails, that would eventually reconvene at a scenic overlook for lunch. Somehow, I ended up separated from Sarah, placed instead with Kevin, his assistant Megan, and 3 other Pinnacle employees who formed his core group. "You are with us today," Daniel Kevin declared, with an exaggerated wink. "We want to get to know Sarah's mysterious husband better." As we hiked deeper into the forest following a trail marked with blue blazes, the conversation felt strained and artificial. They asked superficial questions about my work, but quickly lost interest when I explained the technical aspects of cybersecurity. Occasionally, they would share inside jokes and office gossip, clearly meant to emphasize my outsider status. About 2 hours into the hike, Kevin led us off the marked trail, claiming to know a shortcut to an incredible vista. The established path continued straight ahead, but he veered sharply right onto a barely discernible game trail. "Are you sure this is safe?" I asked, noticing our blue trail markers had disappeared. The guide specifically mentioned staying on marked paths. Kevin smirked at the others. "See, exactly what Sarah said. Always playing it safe." The group laughed, as if he had said something brilliantly witty. "Trust me, corporate security consultant. Some of us actually spend time outdoors." Reluctantly, I followed them up a steep incline and through increasingly dense forest. After another 30 minutes, we emerged into a small clearing atop a ridge. The view was indeed spectacular, with mountains rolling toward the horizon. But we were clearly far from any established trail. "Perfect spot," Kevin announced, dropping his backpack. The others formed a loose circle around me, their expressions shifting from casual to something more predatory. So Daniel Kevin began. "Sarah tells us you are always prepared for anything, that you lecture her about safety and contingency plans." "I would not call it lecturing," I replied carefully. "In my line of work, we assess risks and prepare accordingly." Well, today we have a little team-building exercise to test those preparation skills of yours, Kevin said, his tone making it clear this was not a friendly challenge. We want to see how Mr. Safety handles a real situation. What happened next unfolded with practiced coordination. Megan asked to see my phone to take a group photo, then quickly passed it to another colleague who slipped it into his pocket. Someone else suggested checking the map in my backpack, using the opportunity to remove my wallet and keys. When I protested, Kevin placed his hand on my shoulder. Relax, Daniel. This is a character-building exercise, the ultimate test of resourcefulness. The realization of what was happening struck me just as I saw Sarah approaching through the trees, accompanied by the rest of the Pinnacle team. Her expression held a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Sarah, what is going on?" I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. "It is just a team-building exercise, honey," she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. "Everyone goes through something like this. Last year they left Megan in a mall, wearing a ridiculous costume with no money or phone. We are in the wilderness," I said incredulously. "This is nothing like a mall prank." Kevin stepped forward, clearly enjoying his role. "The challenge is simple. Find your way back to the lodge without phone money or the trail map. A true test of those survival skills you supposedly have. This is dangerous and completely inappropriate," I stated firmly. "Give me back my belongings now." Instead of responding, Kevin signaled to the group. They began retreating toward the forest edge, my possessions distributed among them. Sarah lingered momentarily, conflict evident on her face. "It is just a few miles, Daniel. Kevin says there is a fire road just down this ridge that leads almost directly to the lodge. They did this to his brother-in-law last year, and he was fine. I will see you at dinner, okay? Please just go along with it." Before I could respond, she hurried after her colleagues. I followed them to the edge of the clearing, just in time to see the group pile into our SUV, and Kevin's Range Rover parked on a dirt fire road about 50 yards down the slope. As the vehicles started, several of them leaned out windows to take photos and videos of me standing alone on the ridge. Their laughter carried clearly through the mountain air as they drove away, leaving a cloud of dust. Standing there, watching the only transportation disappear, I felt a dangerous calm settle over me. This was not just a harmless prank. I was miles from civilization, without communications identification or provisions in mountainous terrain as afternoon began sliding toward evening. What they did not know was that as a security professional, I never traveled without backup options. In a hidden compartment in my right hiking boot, I kept a mini emergency phone with satellite capability precisely for situations where primary communications failed. It was expensive and limited in function, but it could make calls when no regular cell service existed. I did not call park rangers or 911, though perhaps I should have. Instead, I called Robert Whitman, my former college roommate and current executive vice president at Madison Media, Pinnacle's parent company. Robert and I had maintained our friendship over the years, occasionally consulting on security projects together. Few people, including Sarah, knew the extent of his influence within the Madison corporate structure. When I explained the situation, Robert's initial disbelief quickly turned to cold anger. "They left you alone in the Adirondacks, as a prank, with no supplies or communication. That is beyond unprofessional. It is criminally negligent. I am going to try to make it to that fire road," I told him. "Can you get me the exact coordinates of the lodge? My emergency GPS still works." Robert did more than that. He contacted the Park Service, mobilized Madison's legal team, and began making calls to the company board members. Meanwhile, I began the difficult process of navigating unfamiliar wilderness with minimal resources. The few miles Sarah mentioned proved to be nearly 8 miles of rugged terrain. The temperature dropped considerably as evening approached, and I encountered 2 black bears at a distance. By the time I reached a point with better satellite reception, darkness was falling. Robert had arranged for park rangers to meet me, and they arrived with emergency supplies and transportation, just as the forest became dangerously dark. The head ranger, a stern woman named Diane, strongly encouraged me to file criminal charges. "Abandoning someone in this wilderness is no joke," she insisted. People die out here every year. With no water, food, or proper navigation, you were at serious risk. I declined to press charges, knowing that Robert's approach through corporate channels would have far more lasting impact. That night, as I checked into a hotel in the nearest town, my phone began receiving frantic messages from Sarah. Apparently, it had taken the group hours to realize the prank might have put me in actual danger. I answered only to confirm I was safe, then silenced the phone and slept deeply, emotionally exhausted. When Sarah returned to our New York apartment the next day, her demeanor oscillated between defensive justification and genuine remorse. Kevin assured us it was completely safe, she explained, pacing our living room. The fire road was supposed to be an obvious path back. We never meant for you to feel actually stranded. I listened quietly, keeping my expression neutral, and taking my phone, wallet, and keys seemed like reasonable additions to this safe, well-planned activity. That was Kevin's idea, she admitted. He said it would make the challenge more authentic. Everyone has to go through some initiation at Pinnacle. Last year, they made the new graphic designer think he had accidentally deleted the company website. Is that supposed to make this better? I asked calmly. Comparing abandonment in wilderness to office pranks, Sarah's colleagues had been texting her throughout our conversation, asking if I was still being dramatic about the situation. Several messages suggested I clearly could not take a joke and was possibly damaging her standing in the company by overreacting. They just do not understand why you are so upset, she said, showing me a particularly dismissive message from Kevin. It is part of our culture. Everyone goes through something. I simply nodded, not revealing that while she had been driving back to the city, I had been on the phone with Robert for over an hour. Madison Media's executive team and legal department had been working through the night reviewing the incident and its implications. I have an early client meeting tomorrow, I said finally. We should probably get some rest. Sarah seemed unsettled by my calm demeanor, but appeared relieved that I was not continuing the argument. She went to bed, still clutching her phone, periodically checking messages from her workgroup chat. The next morning, I left before Sarah awoke, intentionally giving her space to prepare for her workday normally. At precisely 9:00 a.m., as I sat with my client in Midtown, Sarah called in a panic. Daniel, something huge is happening at work. There is an emergency all-hands meeting with executives from Madison. Everyone is freaking out. I expressed appropriate surprise and concern, promising to talk more when she knew the details. Less than an hour later, she called again, her voice shaking. They fired Kevin, and Megan, and Jordan, and Tyler, and Patricia, everyone who was directly involved in what happened this weekend. They are calling it a dangerous breach of corporate conduct policies and actionable endangerment of a civilian. By lunchtime, the situation had escalated further. Sarah called a third time now, openly crying. They just fired me too, along with anyone who knew about the plan in advance or participated. 17 people total, Daniel. 17. They had security escort us out and everything. When I returned home that evening, Sarah was surrounded by boxes from her office, her eyes red from crying. I do not understand how this happened so quickly, she said. This morning, there was an email from Madison's executive team to the entire company about dangerous and unprofessional conduct that violated core corporate values. Then Robert Whitman himself, the EVP of Madison Media, came to our office with the head of HR and legal counsel. I set down my laptop bag and sat beside her on the couch. Sarah Robert Whitman is my friend from college. We were roommates for 3 years. He is also godfather to my niece. The color drained from her face as she processed this information. You know Robert Whitman. Personally, why did you never mention this? It never seemed relevant to mention who my college friends became professionally, I replied calmly. Just like you never mentioned your team was planning to abandon your husband in the wilderness as entertainment. Sarah's shock turned to anger. So you called your powerful friend and got everyone fired. Just like that. over a stupid prank that went a little too far. I called my friend because I was stranded in a dangerous situation by people who should have known better. What happened afterward was not my decision. According to Robert, when Madison's legal team reviewed the videos that your colleagues posted to the company Slack channel, they identified multiple violations of corporate policy and potential legal liability. The reality of her situation began to sink in. Daniel, what are we going to do? I do not have a job. Everyone in the industry will know what happened. Kevin's father is furious, saying we embarrassed the family and the company. I took her hand, my anger softening at her genuine distress. We will be fine financially. My consulting business is doing well enough to support us both while you find a new position. As for your reputation, this will blow over if you learn from it. Learn what exactly, she asked, still defensive. That real friends, real colleagues, do not put each other in danger for entertainment. That crossing ethical boundaries for the sake of fitting in has consequences. That workplace families that demand blind loyalty over basic human decency are toxic environments, not supportive communities. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. The justifications and defensive arguments she had been clinging to finally crumbling in the face of concrete consequences. I never thought it would go so far, she whispered. At first, Kevin's pranks seemed harmless. Then they got more extreme, but everyone laughed and participated, so it seemed normal. I knew leaving you out there was wrong, but I did not want to be the only one objecting. That is exactly how toxic workplace cultures perpetuate themselves, I said gently, through incremental boundary violations that no one challenges because they fear exclusion. In the days that followed, Sarah alternated between regret, anger, and fear about her professional future. With my encouragement, she began seeing a therapist to process her experience and understand why she had compromised her values to fit into a toxic environment. Meanwhile, I contacted several professional colleagues who helped her secure interviews with companies known for healthy workplace cultures. 6 months after the prank that reshaped our lives, Sarah and I found ourselves in a surprisingly better place, both individually and as a couple. She had secured a position at a smaller, well-respected marketing firm with clear professional boundaries and ethical leadership. Her new colleagues valued her creativity and expertise without demanding her personal identity be subsumed into workplace politics. My consulting business had expanded, allowing me to be more selective with clients and maintain a healthier work-life balance. The extra time together had strengthened our marriage, providing space for difficult but necessary conversations about loyalty, boundaries, and mutual respect. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast at our favorite cafe, Sarah suddenly tensed, looking toward the entrance. "That is Patricia," she whispered. She was one of the people fired from Pinnacle. Patricia noticed us simultaneously, her face registering shock and then shame. After a moment of visible hesitation, she approached our table. "Daniel, Sarah," she said, her voice unsteady. "I have been hoping for a chance to apologize in person. What we did was inexcusable, and I have regretted it every day since." The genuine remorse in her expression was striking. She explained that after being fired, she had struggled to find comparable employment, eventually taking a lower position at a smaller company. The worst part was having to explain to potential employers why I left Pinnacle. Saying I participated in abandoning someone in the wilderness as a prank is not exactly a selling point in interviews. She also shared news of our former colleagues. Kevin had been unable to secure another position in marketing, his reputation tarnished by the incident, and his father's unwillingness to use family connections to help him after such an embarrassment. Megan had moved to another state to restart her career. Others had taken significant steps backward professionally. The thing is, Patricia concluded, even though the consequences were severe, they were also fair. We did something dangerous and cruel for entertainment. That should have professional repercussions. After Patricia left, Sarah was quiet, processing the encounter. You know, she finally said, when everything first happened, I was so angry at you for calling Robert. I felt like you had overreacted and destroyed my career out of spite. But seeing Patricia today, hearing about everyone else, I realize now that you did not seek revenge. You just allowed natural consequences to unfold. This insight marked a significant turning point in our recovery from the incident. Sarah had finally separated the consequence from the action, recognizing that professional standards exist for important reasons. The people who abandoned me in the wilderness were not victims of my overreaction, but of their own profoundly poor judgment. That evening, as we walked through Central Park, Sarah took my hand. I want you to know that I understand now how close I came to losing everything that truly matters. Not just my job, but you, my integrity, my sense of right and wrong. Getting caught up in that toxic environment almost cost me the life we built together. The months since the incident had taught us both valuable lessons about workplace boundaries, the difference between genuine community and toxic conformity, and the courage required to stand against collective poor judgment. Sarah had learned that real professional growth does not come from blind loyalty to charismatic but unethical leaders. I had learned that sometimes allowing natural consequences to unfold is more effective than direct confrontation or retaliation. Most importantly, we had rebuilt our partnership on a stronger foundation of mutual respect and shared values. The challenge had forced us to articulate what truly mattered in our relationship and professional lives, creating clearer boundaries and expectations for the future. As we continue moving forward, we carry these lessons with us: that no workplace should demand complicity and cruelty as proof of loyalty, that standing firm in your values may be initially unpopular but ultimately respected, and that sometimes the most powerful response to mistreatment is not anger or vengeance, but simply allowing truth and consequence to speak for themselves. Have you ever had to stand your ground when a joke or prank went too far? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story about workplace boundaries and natural consequences resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating difficult situations with integrity. Share this video with someone who might be facing pressure to compromise their values to fit in. Thank you for joining me today, and remember that true strength often lies not in getting even, but in standing firmly for what is right.